bring an old friend on, and I say old because we've known each other a long time. And he's
Oh,
old.
I thought it was.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, exactly. You're old. I'm not. But an old friend from Baton Rouge who is a financial guru type of guy, and Pete Bush is with me here on Catalyst Live. I think, Pete, what reason I wanted to bring you on was, we got coaches, we got managers, we got business owners, and everybody who's wanting to know financially where we're at during this crisis. And without giving away, like asking for specific information, but really, can you speak to the climate of what's happening and what we're doing?
Well, I mean, as everyone has already figured out, I mean, we're in uncharted territory as far as the impact that this has had across the nation with the shutdowns and kind of the domino effect of different businesses not operating, at least for some period of time. So, we've heard it said, and we'll continue to probably say it a couple of times on this show, but it's these kind of times are unprecedented. But, we're reminding everybody that just about every event we've ever been through at the time was unprecedented. Who would have thought planes would fly into the buildings in New York and, the stock market closed for a few days. People don't remember that, that it was actually shut down. You couldn't sell anything if you wanted to because it just couldn't function. There was a lot of fear and panic around that. And then, even though 0809, 07, 08, 09 housing crisis, I mean, it had swung way too far the other way and gotten overblown in our country. Never seen anything like that. And so what I've been trying to tell people is, yes, these are unprecedented times, but you're also seeing unprecedented responses to this. The stimulus package that was passed and signed by the president is something that we've never seen before. And that's probably not finished. I mean, there's probably a little bit more to come, or I guess a lot more to come in this case. And so I'm just cautioning everybody to say, yes, we're living in a different set of circumstances, but the human ingenuity and innovation and, positive spirit, I think will get us all through this.
What about the stimulus package? Because as a small business owner, I'm looking at it and I'm looking at what's coming out and I'm like, should I look at it? Business wise, yes, my belt will get tighter. Knock on wood, I should be fine. But this is my only business in our family. It's our family business. And, I know, you're a business owner. And so when you look at that information coming out, it's a little overwhelming. It's a little confusing. But I kind of look at it like, I'm almost tempted to say, let me take a look at it and take it, because I don't know what the next 6 months are going to be.
Right. Yeah. And I would encourage everybody to do that. There's the personal side of it that's getting a lot of press about the $1,200 check or the, so much per family and per child under 18 and those kind of things, or under 17. And this is brand new. I mean, we're here on Tuesday, and I mean, this thing got signed over the weekend. So everybody's been studying up on it. I've been getting barraged with emails, about it. So there's the personal side, but then there's also the business side. And I think it's stress test time for any business. So, if I were, we've done it in our own business. You know that you're probably going to be spending less also. So there may be less income, but there's going to be less expenses in the sense that we're forced not to go out to eat. We're forced not to take the plane trips and hotels. So some of our travel, entertainment budget, those types of things have gotten shut down to zero. So, some of the lesser income will be offset by some of that. But for some businesses, it's going to be dramatic. I mean, if income goes to zero, very rarely would expenses go to zero. So I would say every business owner needs to look at it. There are some provisions in there for keeping your people employed, where even some of those loans, they'll either have a very low interest rate on them, or if certain conditions are met, which is basically that you continue to maintain the level of employees that you had prior, is that some of those loans are forgivable where you don't have to pay them back.
Yeah, no, that's the intriguing side of it, because, I look at that and I'm thinking, if that's that becomes a grant. That's just just a Band-Aid that the government is putting in place.
In essence, yeah. But I mean, think about how, governments make their money. I mean, they tax income for the most part. There's a lot of other ways they make income, but the biggie is they tax income and businesses. So, if the businesses aren't there and the people aren't there to earn income to tax, I mean, it's an investment back in their cash flow stream, if you think about it that way.
The financial entities right now, you hear the president talk, and I know, and this isn't a political discussion because I don't want to be Twitter, but the mechanisms that have been in place over the last year have been very strong from what a layperson like me looks at. Do you see this as an organization, as a company? I mean, you're not doing predictive modeling, but do you see the strength and the opportunity to start seeing things come back in 3 to 6 to 8 months type of stuff?
Well, I mean, I think the depth there what we're dealing with, and I think what's shaking the markets for the most part is this unknowability. There's really three primary things I think as an investor slash business person that are unknowable. And one is when is the end of this virus thing? When do we get it under control? When does it not just level out or flatten out, but when does this thing run its course and go away? Because I think once that you start to see the trend, turning, then you'll start to have companies and economists and analysts and all that. They'll start to be able to look at it and go, okay, now I can project out a few months because it looks like this thing's run its course. The other thing is, the recession. I guess they don't have enough data to officially say we're in a recession, but we're in a recession, and they're going to look back, and it would have started, sometime around a couple of weeks ago, and the trickle effect of that. How long will that last? Will it be 1 quarter or 2 quarters? Again, unknowable. The depth of it, unknowable. How much will it impact the markets? Unknowable. So it's kind of and it's the unknowability. It's the thing the market hates the worst. It would rather really crappy, bad news on earnings than no news. And so right now, people aren't buying gas. They're not going out to eat. They're not buying groceries. Well, I guess they're buying groceries, but they're not shopping as much for clothes and things like that. So an analyst looks, and he's always forward projecting. The market is basically an 8 to 12 month forward projection of what they think a company would earn, right? Well, right now, you see these huge volatile days, up 9%, down 3%, up, and that's unprecedented as well. And one of the reasons is the market can't figure out what is going to be the hit to earnings. Of course, Exxon and Chevron and the oil companies have the double whammy. They've got the virus, and they've also got the oil fight going on between the Saudis and Russia, which have pushed the barrel of oil down below $20. I mean, it's again, you got a double whammy in that particular industry, which hits Louisiana hard. I mean, we're a big oil and gas state, so there's
and that was a strong driving factor of our economy, was that we became the large producer of it. So now they're striking at us as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, let's talk about political. I mean, some of that's, certainly aimed at trying to disrupt, the U.S. economy as well. But the big beef is between Saudi and Russia, getting Russia back to the table to negotiate. And I think that probably will work. But again, I guess we have to be accepting of this gray area stuff right now, and I do think that once the market knows, and once the economy kind of knows, how this thing runs its course, that you will see a rally back. Now, if it goes on and on and on, it's a little tougher to predict. But if we can get it under control within the next 2 weeks, 3 months, whatever it is, then I think you got some damage control in there that would help us rebound quickly.
What are some of the guidelines that you recommend to a business owner right now? Because one of the things I always look at when something like this happens is, what are the learnings that we're going to have to put in place for future?
Yeah.
I think 9/11 changed the travel industry. Absolutely. You saw an entire growth of Homeland Security. You saw TSA agents. People traveled different. I think this is going to result in us working differently. I think you're going to see a pretty large expansion of work from home environments now.
Yeah.
I think this is going to show that most companies are like even my wife and I have been talking about getting rid of the office, and we have for a while because we don't need it. 90-something% of my clients are out of this, are not in my area. And the 10% I see are mostly golfers, so I can see them at the golf course, or I can sublet a place at a buddy of mine's physician's office, who doesn't, who's got space, and I can see him there and not take that burden.
Right.
So from a business owner standpoint, because what hit me was, most people live above their means.
Yep.
Most people don't have a rainy day fund.
Right.
But this came out of nowhere.
Yeah, there was a stat. There was a stat actually a couple of years ago that said 40% of the population could not withstand a surprise expense of more than $400.
Yeah.
So that's pretty low. I mean, $400 doesn't go anywhere these days. But I mean,
And it doesn't
that's
even get you an
so.
iPhone.
So to your point, I mean, and then how does a business owner? First of all, I think you're right. What you're talking about is probably, I would not deem it as this crisis created that. I would say this crisis is accelerating that, because that was
Okay.
already happening.
Yeah.
You already saw, the internet's made the world small, and you already have seen a lot of remote work situations. It's one of the reasons you've seen pressure in corporate real estate. But if you think about it in terms of, man, are we going to a mass work at home type of situation, or work remotely situation? I think there's certain functions of certain businesses where you actually do have to be
Yeah.
on the campus. But the gig economy, the different self-employed setups that are out there now, um, those may not necessarily require real estate. So when you think about the trickle effect of that, less businesses needing less real estate, it changes that market. But then if there's, if you need less real estate, then are you paying insurance? Are you paying electric bills at the office? And do you pay, homeowner fees and all? I mean, think of all the expenses that you have when you have an office that, yeah, may go away if you don't. I mean, it could change. Think about the clothing industry. I mean, look, you're sitting here in a golf shirt. I got a t-shirt on today. I mean, normally I'm a little better dressed. Uh, but,
Right.
uh, if people are working from home, is somebody going to put a suit and tie on instead of the camera? Probably not,
Yeah.
may not need to shop as much. So yeah, I think it's just going to accelerate what was already happening, to be honest.
It's a good way to put it. I mean, I think, what's interesting is, to your point is, I've been in the office since this started, but I live an hour or a minute. I live 3 minutes from my office. I come up here to get the space away, but I'm in shorts every day. In fact, first thing I do when I get in here is I kick my shoes off, and I walk around barefoot because nobody's coming in, and it's kind of nice. It's kind of isolating, but the at the same time, it's it's what's the ends mean here. And it just, I really worry about the economy, like educating my daughters. Like, this is a time. I told a coach the other day, I said, this is like, you ever been around an elderly person who lived through the Great Depression? They always had a nest egg in their house somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
They always had a coffee can with cash,
Right.
with that nobody knew where it was, but that was their nest egg.
Yep.
And they never overcooked food. They, didn't waste anything. That was an indelible mark on that generation.
Yeah.
I'm not wondering if this isn't going to be the same way, that we look back 20, 30 years from now and go, God, the spring of 2020
Yeah.
changed. And the kids that are going through that are going to remember,
Yeah.
you always have a nest egg.
I think you're right in the
I hope
sense.
so. How about that? I
I
hope
think
so.
you're right in the sense of always having a nest egg. I don't know that hoarding cash in a coffee can
Yeah.
is going to come back in vogue, just because, again, I mean, I think a lot of people do, especially now with the way that payments have changed and you exchange currency. If you remember, at that time, the credit card didn't come around until about 1950. So
Yeah.
the only way to exchange goods and services was with currency. So, that made sense then. But today, there's so many different ways of modes of exchange. I mean, I sit there with my daughter and Venmo her, cash to go to get something from the store or whatever, instead of
Hmm.
handing their dollar bills. So I do think that in an account somewhere, liquid cash, I think this is going to force businesses and personal balance sheets to revisit the amount of just cash on hand that they had, or access to liquidity. So you're seeing, businesses that have line of credits, restaurant industry, really, I've talked to a couple of clients that have been in this situation where, really right at the front end of this, they had these credit lines that are sitting there from hey, if I need cash, if I need to float payroll or something
Hmm.
for some short period of time, I've got this line of credit. I haven't ever had to use it, but it's there. Well, they went ahead and hit it, because they, instead of the bank closing the line of credit because they know the hit that's coming to the restaurant business, They basically took it and moved it over to their balance sheet. So now the
Mhm.
cash is in the account of the restaurant business, so they can float that. And then, of course, that was before we knew any of these business loans were coming to help out as well. So, but I think cash or access to cash is going to be, or liquidity is going to be more important and more focused on down the road. I think it should, at least for some short period of time, people that go through a painful experience, like you were talking about the Great Depression, it leaves scars on people, and all the good lessons are have some sort of pain involved with them. And I think if somebody and it's not just, I would say it's not just low income workers that are unable to pay. I mean, you see some high income earners that live above their means as well, and I think some of those things will come home to roost during this, and it'll be a wake up call for people to do planning. And
Well,
that
I mean,
I've been telling that to my team, by the way. I've been saying
good.
that the world has been focused on investing, and buying the right investment and asset allocation and all that. There's going to be a fundamental shift, I think, in our world to planning, because just like you lay out a plan, for your clients, and coaches lay out a plan for
Mhm.
their teams and their athletes and all that, a predominant amount of people do not do that with their personal
No.
finance. And I think it's time that somebody do that, because basically what comes out of planning, so if you think about separating planning from investing, all right, so take planning and say planning is emotional and investing is logical. So when you say the logical world over here, you say, if you put this in, it pays this dividend or this interest, or you get this tax deduction. This is how this investment works. That's all the logic side of the brain. Planning over here is emotional. Am I going to have enough cash if something bad happens? And do I have enough money to send the kids to school? Am I going to outlive my money, or is my money going to outlive me? These are questions, but they're actually gut punch to the emotional side, right? So people are, as I've said many times, the rational actor is a myth. People don't act rationally.
Mm-mm.
People act emotionally, and then they go look for the logic to try to understand, why do I feel like this? And the thing that comes out of planning, the three things we talk about are confidence, clarity, and a sense of direction.
Mm.
That is the outcome of planning. The outcome of investing can support that for sure. But going through the planning process, and I think this is probably true of any planning process, but it's especially true of financial planning, confidence is a superpower. If you can put your feet on the ground in the morning, and you may have something else to worry about that day, but if you don't have to worry about money, again, you got cash reserves, you got investments, you've got time, you got enough money to ride out any bad thing like this that's happening, then when your feet hit the floor in the morning, you have confidence. And when you have a plan, you have clarity and direction about how's this all going to shake out 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. I got some sort of idea. I don't have all the facts, but I got a plan. I'm on a road. I see where the road is going. That tends to, and again, those are all emotional things. That tends to keep people in their seats at times like this when they have a plan, because they go, oh, well, we expected some road bumps along the way. Who's getting shaken out of their shares right now are people that don't have a plan. They were
Yeah.
just investing for return.
Yeah. It's it's interesting because you're talking about it's not really low income or high income. I know in the medical industry, you got gastroenterologists who have been shut down from doing procedures. That's the
Right.
lifeblood of their business. Orthopedic surgeons aren't doing surgery.
Correct.
And you've got large staffs, you've got most of the time, you've got large expense bases there. And you look at it and you think, man, this is hitting across multiple levels. Attorneys, each and every level is going to be impacted. The one area that I think is interesting that we probably didn't think about, and I saw a report this morning, is the athletic departments. Normally athletic departments are seen as cash cows. People make large investments, there's large budgets, the football season goes on, we make a lot of money. But with the waiver that was approved yesterday by the NCAA to allow everybody an extra year of eligibility,
Right.
the loss of March Madness, the threat to college football, and the people who are investing in the TAFs or the Tide Pride or the War Eagle Club or all those different factors that we see. I saw this report that don't be shocked to start seeing athletic departments who have gotten pretty fat start
Mhm.
contracting
Right.
and eliminating,
Right.
because the revenue source is drying up. We never really even, I don't even know if we even thought that the athletic departments were at risk.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, the oxygen of any business or any enterprise is cash.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not so much that cash. I mean, you hear the phrase "cash is king." I always say cash flow is king.
Yeah.
Cash is queen, because if you have cash and you have no cash flow, your cash will eventually go to zero.
Correct.
Cash flow is king. And so if people aren't buying the tickets and they're not going to the concession stand and they're not doing the things that they would typically do with their money, for instance, I mean, just being an LSU season ticket holder in baseball, just a couple of days ago, we got the notice, hey, the season's not going to happen. We're going to refund the money. If you'd like, you can, continue to donate the money to LSU, or you can get your cash back. My guess is most people are getting their cash back, simply because of some of the uncertainty that they're sitting there looking at down the line. But most athletic departments and some successful business enterprises for sure have prepared well for this. There are probably layers of management, layers of uh, authority that get layered in the fatter times.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, we got the money, and let's go ahead and delegate. Let's get another guy in there to handle X, right? And that's going to be their job. They're just going to handle X. Whereas before, you had one guy doing three jobs, right? They start to diversify out with the success of the program, the market, the cash flow, whatever. And so I think you will see some of that on the other side of this, is you'll see leaner organizations that realize, like, okay, I had to take a really hard look at, what was actually mission critical to run this business, whatever the business is, even charities. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, they're all going to be looking at it going, I mean, we're stress testing and squeezing the cash flow right now. So we got to squeeze the expense side of the equation as well. I've always likened, doing financial planning for athletes, just use these silly analogies that make it really easy to understand. But I've always used the bathtub analogy, where you got the spigot coming in, right? And in good times, it's flooding in for a lot of athletes, to be honest. And so there's the hole in the bottom. The hole in the bottom of the tub is your expenses. Okay. There's the water level that you just kind of want to maintain. Like there's money coming in, there's hole going out. If it gushes in too fast, right, the water rises, overflows. So what do? We take buckets and we set them to the side, and we call those investments. We buy real estate, we buy stocks, we do whatever with that, and we set it to the side. So we talk about this with athletes at the end of the career. You're really a couple of things. If the hole in the bottom just gets massive, right, and the income stops, which we know as athletes that we're not necessarily in control of when the income stops.
Yeah.
Right.
That's being a decision made for you.
Yeah, we could wake up one day and that decision could be made for us. So, but when the income stops, what happens is so the way to describe that is, while you're working and while cash flow is good, the income statement, which is your money coming in and money going out, that's your income statement. It actually feeds the balance sheet, because you're able to take these buckets and set them to the side, and you build up a balance sheet of investments. So what ends up happening on the other side, simple example, the spigot stops, knobs get turned off, all right? And now the water is going to start going down because you got the hole in the bottom, right? So it gets to a certain level and it looks like it might be running out. What do? You take your buckets and you start dumping them back in, right? And okay, now the water comes up. Well, then there's no income coming in.
Yeah.
So the water goes back. Okay, I'll liquidate another investment. I'll sell another piece of property. I'll do whatever. I'll dump that in the tub. And when you can play that game a little bit, but when the last bucket gets dumped in and there's no cash flow coming in, now you're in a race against time and it's game over when that one's out. So it's the opposite way of thinking. But when you're setting aside the buckets, set aside buckets that produce income, right? So that you don't have to dump the bucket, sell the bucket, whatever. when times are lean, they're actually can kick off dividend. That little spigot can kick in versus dumping the whole bucket or selling the whole investment. So I think that's a good way to analogy to think about how to manage uh,
What
your position, your cash flow.
what's the impact on the professional athletes right now whose Major League Baseball season is going to be contracted? It's got to be. There's no way
Yeah.
they're going to be able to get a 162 game season. The NBA is going to be contracted. Are they going to see an adjustment of their salaries during that time, or are they those that have guaranteed contracts? Are there a provision in there for 162 games, or is it a season defined by the calendar?
Yeah, baseball is a little bit different, as we know from a lot of the other sports, and the large predominant amount of, if not all of the contracts are guaranteed, except for performance bonuses and things like that.
Okay.
You'll see those types of things be impacted because again, you're not playing to be able to put up the performance. So I was talking to one of our players last night actually, and I think that they are going to figure it out. I mean, there's a lot of like, how are we going to do it? Are we going to play a lot of double headers and squeeze it in and try to get in as many games as we can for a regular season? They already have talked about, they've already talked about contracting the, the draft, right?
Yeah.
So you got a very short, minor league season, and you already have existing players there, so you don't want to dump a whole bunch of new players. If you think about short season A ball or rookie league or things like that, well, they're pretty much going to be wiped out. So you don't want to dump a bunch of new players in there. So if you see what they did with the draft, they passed that a couple of days ago. The union did on really limiting, or really leaving it open to be drafted. But the bottom line is, a lot of kids are going to go, well, I'm just going to stay in college one more year, or I'm going to not sign pro at this time. So I think the impact to the income of the athletes, the pro athletes, is going to be affected in different ways depending on the sport. I do think that they will have some sort of shortened season. I don't know the provisions in a contract other than performance bonuses that would not be guaranteed. I think most of the baseball guys are expecting to be paid, on their contracts. But again, we're definitely in rare times with that said.
What about coaches in universities? Because I got to imagine that, a baseball coach at college at, Pulmonary, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
they, that does that count as a season towards their contract, or is there added on the back end, or performance bonuses, making tournaments and graduation rates, and how has that functioned? Because I know that there's a lot. I mean, nobody wrote the contracts assuming that we would have something like this.
Yeah, and I think they could. I think that some of these organizations could make legitimate arguments that this is such a dramatic unforeseen financial impact that if we don't revisit these things, then it's going to compound
Yeah.
the problem, right? So I do think that. I mean, I was reading an article about our own LSU, DJ LeMahieu. He signed a 2-year deal with the Yankees in 2019, had a phenomenal year. I mean, ended up in the playoffs. And the article was, might he have played his last game as a Yankee? Because he actually is a free agent again at the end of the 2020 season. And if 2020 season doesn't happen, that contract's still good. Does he, basically get paid for that year he didn't play for the Yankees, but end up with another team? So there's all kind of interesting things going on like that to think. I think for coaches, what I described earlier with the layers of coaches, that sometimes when times are good and there's more cash to go around, I think some of these salaries, especially across the different levels of the game, they've gotten pretty high. You may see some of that contract. I mean, or you may see positions contract. But college baseball has pretty limited positions in coaching. Football, of course, has different, different layers. If you look at the size of a coaching staff on a college football team today versus even like 10, 20 years ago, I mean, the number of specialist coaches is just blown up. And these guys are making, at the major universities, specialist coaches are making a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
So, yeah, again, the trickle effect of the cash flow not coming in and fans not able to come to the game. I'm optimistic that things will sort themselves out, and we'll have a college football season and all that. I know there's people saying that maybe we won't, but I am optimistic
I
at this
can't
point.
imagine that they'd lose that vehicle. It's
Yeah,
too
I
critical.
mean, I think that most of the public. So you think about that. That fast forward that we're at the end of March here, last day of March today. You fast forward that 6 months to September, right, or 5 months, let's say, at the beginning of the college football season. Um, by then this virus will have been under control, and it I won't say there won't be any cases of it, because it sounds like it could hang out there a little while. But as far as it being a pandemic, still 5 months from now, I don't think that's realistic. And I think as far as getting the economy back going, people back working, things back to normal, I think you will start to see that before then. So I'm hopeful that the college football season happens. I think the country needs that kind of stuff to start coming back online to be normal.
What do you think the impact's going to be when we get back to full sports? I mean, I think we saw the healing power of sports after 9/11. We saw
Hmm.
the healing power of the New Orleans Saints after Katrina and Drew Brees. There's a reason why he's paid what he is, and he's so
Yeah.
beloved in the city because of the investment and the commitment he made. What do you think the worldwide effect is going to be? Because I've got to believe it's going to be absolutely um, winner take all type of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
the reason I'm asking is I saw Clay Travis tweet. Thought it was actually a really good idea. He gets panned a lot because he asks logical questions, and I know he pisses off a lot of the journalists who are stuck in their normal way of thinking. But he said, Vegas is shut down. There's 4 high-level courts in Vegas. Take the test everybody in the NBA, sequester them in a hotel in Vegas, and play basketball games, and you'd win the television market.
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
I
I
think
would
that,
actually watch it.
yeah, I mean, I watch anything right now. I mean,
Exactly.
we have our buddy Louis Garcia. He was watching cricket the other day. So, I
Well,
mean,
he is a worldly man, though. I mean,
he is the world's most interesting
yes,
Cuban man.
he is. He is.
I love it.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I think you're right in the sense of and I do feel like this is already kind of happening with the sense of patriotism, and that we're all in this together. You saw some of that coming out of these other crises. That if you take that to a local community level, one of the psychologically one of the benefits of your local sports team is that sense of community.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm part of this thing that we all believe in and that we're all cheering for. So I think sports plays a vital role in that, in the sense of, especially here, living. I mean, I live a mile and a half from LSU, so it's a huge thing here as far as the sense of community and belonging and things like that, that I think make people feel like it's back to normal.
Hmm.
So I think it's critical that the sports world get back up and running. I mean, as quick as possible, given the safety guidelines. I was joking with my wife the other day, and I don't know the impact this will have on how far you have to sit away from somebody on a plane or at a hotel or at a ball game. I mean, think about that. If you go to sit in some of these ball games and you feel like guys like me and you, our
Yeah.
size, we're sitting there crammed in.
Go to
I'm
a
like,
game at Tennessee. It's awful.
oh look, I'm like 2 pounds of jelly in a 1 pound jar, buddy. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
exactly.
tough.
Oh,
So some of the social distancing may not be too bad. Give me a little more elbow room.
right.
But no, I don't know what's going to happen with regards to that. But I do feel like, I was joking. What I was saying is, I was joking with my wife, saying, every woman in America right now is cheering because more men are going to actually wash their hands.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Yes.
we're just
Completely.
we're nasty. Hey, we're nasty creatures, but apparently we're going to have to start paying attention. Uh,
I think the thing that's going to come out of it is, when I travel and I would see somebody from Asia walking in the airport and they have a mask on, I'd be like, whatever.
yeah, right.
I have a feeling you're going to see at games and you're going to see people wearing masks. I mean,
Yeah, Darth
it's
Vader.
yeah. I've had a couple clients who are from China, and they'll tell you. I mean, it's just standard over there, and it's more so. He said, one of them said, it's more so not to protect you, but it's the impression that you give to the world that you're not spreading your germs on them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked for at least a year that you see that, and
Well,
at
hey,
times a year.
there's a business opportunity because women are not going to wear a medical looking mask. They're going to have a design on it, and kids are going to have a design on it. So there you go. If you can 3D print some of these masks and
With
put it,
LSU for a football game.
yeah, put your own design on your mask. I mean, I think there's a business opportunity. Somebody listening needs to jump on that one.
Yeah, and let us know, please, before if you need investors. Pete, thanks
Yes.
so much. Tell people how they can get in touch with you or whatever as we're doing this.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that. I mean, the name of our firm is Horizon Financial Group. It's online. We're horizonfg.com. We do a few things there. We do individual personal wealth management for individuals and business owners. My brothers, Andy and Bill, actually head up our retirement plan business. So we do 401ks and 403bs and things like that. We have Simple Finance, which is kind of the young professional up and coming investor, saver type of thing. I call that foundational financial planning. So there's a division for that that's headed up by Rachel Stewart. She does a great job. That's actually a pretty interesting model because it's mostly digital, and I think that's really going to take off with some of what you talked about earlier about people, being at home more and whatnot. So those are the three main things. We do have a group of advisors that we manage as well, but the website's the easiest place to get us because you can email us all off of there. But I appreciate the opportunity to say that.
You got it. Thank you, Bushman. Love you.
I love you, brother. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye, man.